Hello, techies. Welcome to the Tech Ties Africa podcast, where we'll bring you the latest stories on tech and startups in Africa. Catch us every Thursday at 10 a.m. WAT on techtiesafrica.podbean.com. Let us know what you think by giving us feedback in the comments or on our socials. Now, on with the show. Hello, and welcome back to the Tech Ties Africa podcast, where we talk about the latest developments in tech and startups in Africa. As always, we are looking into what's happening, what's the latest in Africa, and always joined by Karen. How are you doing today, Karen?
Hi, techies. How are you doing, Kelvin? I'm doing okay. Looking forward to some interesting conversations and seeing which trends are moving with us into Q2. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you can always bet on fintech, though. something will always be happening in fintech. So let's see. Today we will be talking about 5G developments in Algeria. South Africa is developing a tokenized gold form. I found that particularly interesting. And we'll talk about fintech, of course. And it seems this week we have a couple of health tech developments. So let's get into it. Starting with 5G. So I believe it was last episode we talked about the low penetration for 5G across Africa at the moment. But we are beginning to see countries push more for 5G. Last week we talked about Ghana and some issues with getting 5G development started in the country. And this week we are seeing that in Algeria, Mobilis, the leading mobile operator, is beginning to have some success with their 5G trials in Algeria. They did some tests in the real world and got some success from this. So they are now optimistic that they can gradually roll out 5G across Algeria in the second half of the year. So this is very good news because, of course, more internet means more development, especially in the world of today where you can learn everything online and you can connect with a lot of people online, which brings a lot of ideas, brings a lot of development. And yeah, I'm very excited about these developments, but more excited about more countries beginning to adopt and push for 5G technology.
Yeah, I think we're now seeing a trend of countries coming behind Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa to push for 5G rollout. And as we are seeing things like AI factories being built here, we're seeing data centers coming into Africa. I think connectivity becomes even more critical if we are to fully take advantage of technology and innovation. I think we'll be able to see a lot more telemedicine, a lot more IoT. And it's exciting to see a country from Northern Africa coming up with a lot of innovation, because I think a couple of weeks ago we were discussing and saying that we don't always see these countries and the innovations that they're coming up with. And I think in the last couple of weeks we've seen a lot more. We saw Tunisia last week. We're seeing Algeria this week. I think the focus for Mobilis is upgrading infrastructure and preparing for commercial deployment, which is very important so that they can give better and faster services in the country. I also know that countries that are neighboring Algeria should start preparing for 5G optimized applications as well as startups. So if you're a startup in Northern Africa, you need to start thinking about 5G optimized applications and services that you can offer. I think for now, it's just to see how infrastructural gaps, which we have seen affect other countries that have 5G adoption, where major cities are able to take advantage, but rural areas and maybe semi-urban areas are slowing down full adoption. So I think that might be a trend we'll see in Algeria as well.
And we have already talked about gaming in Africa and how gaming is such a massive industry. And of course, when you have 5G speeds, it opens up this industry a lot more. And not just native gaming or online gaming, you also have cloud gaming.
Yeah.
And even having things like augmented reality streams as well, virtual movies and things like that, they become more feasible as you have faster internet speed. So this, of course, would open new roads for startups that want to innovate around this technology. So yeah, very exciting times indeed.
Absolutely. Now, as you said, we can never not talk about financial tech. South Africa Crypto Asset Platforms has launched a tokenized Krugerrand.
Yeah, Krugerrand. I think the South African currency is rand, right? And so I'm guessing this has something to do with that Krugerrand.
Yeah.
Maybe we are not getting it right, but I'm sure somebody from South Africa will correct us.
We apologize. So the tokenized financial asset exchange, Mestred, has announced that it's launching this tokenized Krugerrand, and it represents physical gold holdings which are stored in Johannesburg in a globally recognized secure vault facility. So by tokenizing, they are allowing investors to buy fractions of a whole ounce, starting from a minimum investment of 50 rands. So I think they're opening up the capacity to invest in gold for people. And I'm interested to hear your opinions, Kelvin, because I think I'm very new to it.
Okay. One thing that I believe a lot of Africans, especially a lot of Africans that are in the digital space, we are always thinking about ways to hedge against inflation, whether that's by investing in foreign currencies or cryptocurrencies, as we've seen in recent times. And some people just have gold, like physical gold. But one of the things that is hard to do is to get original gold. Speaking from a place like Nigeria, is something that I'm very curious about, buying gold, but then I'm not too sure where to get it. So what they are doing, or what it seems like they're doing with the blockchain technology, is tokenizing gold. And what this means is when you look at stable coins like USDT and USDC, the idea behind it is that for every dollar that someone buys or trades on the exchange, you have to back it up by a physical dollar in the bank. So they are trying to apply the same concepts here, where for every Krugerrand that someone trades on the platform, they are backing it by a physical gold Krugerrand coin. And so this way, people have access to invest in gold through cryptocurrencies, through the blockchain. Depending on how much you have, you can also request that you get the physical gold coin at some point. You can withdraw it as the physical gold coin. I think I can see a number of complicated hurdles with regulation and with security, but it's a very interesting concept. And if execution is done right, then yeah, it's a very unique value proposition.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've also been thinking about how do I invest in things like gold? Because I think as you're thinking about investments in Africa, especially, it's real estate, it's gold, because there's a little bit more stability. But what I'm realizing is that there seems to be a trend with tokenization that is becoming more and more known in Africa. I was recently talking to a founder who is trying to tokenize real estate. I'm realizing that it's becoming a way to allow access to the masses where they have probably in the past been locked out as a result of needing to raise a large amount of capital that they may not. So I think tokenization is allowing for more and more people to invest in areas that they may not have been able to do previously. So I think that's a really cool way, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how South Africa goes with this and whether they will open this up to people in other countries as well.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing what they do with this, especially as it relates to whether they would want to go to other African countries too, because it's definitely something I'll be interested in at least. And like you spoke to the trend of tokenization, we would also touch on one other topic that speaks to this as well later in the podcast. Next up, we have health tech. A popular Nigerian influencer is starting a health tech startup for Nigerians. And the first thing I want to ask you, Karen, is have you heard of Aproko Doctor before?
I have. I actually watch his content. I love his content.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
I was introduced to him through another Nigerian podcast, The Other Corner by Denzez. They had Aproko Doctor and his wife on their podcast, and I thought it was a really cool idea what he was doing. So I started consuming his content.
All right, that's cool. Because he's so massive in Nigeria, but I wanted to know whether he was also well known, because it's like when someone is well known in Nigeria, we Nigerians assume the person is well known in Africa. So I wanted to also know if he was known beyond Nigeria. So it's cool to hear, because he creates really valuable content and very important content that I believe a lot of people can get value from. So seeing him start a startup is different, because a lot of the time what we have seen with influencers is they do partnerships, they help promote products. But I can't remember the case where a very popular influencer is getting into the startup or to build something around this. And what he's trying to build is a platform that allows you to communicate with health tech professionals to get advice on your health status. So it starts to sound like telemedicine, but he's doing it a bit differently. What they are building at the moment is an AI bot through WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is very well used in Nigeria. So they are not building an app or anything like that. They are just integrating with the platform that Nigerians already use, because they are starting with Nigerians. What he wants to do, which is something he communicates in his videos too, is to get Nigerians comfortable with talking to health tech professionals before they go and self-diagnose themselves. Because a lot of the time, if we have certain symptoms and we know that these symptoms mean this, we just go and get the drugs for that. It's a common practice in Nigeria. So trying to get between that practice, because he talks about it in videos a lot, and he wants people to start talking to health tech professionals. And then from there, they get better advice on where to get medication, what medication to get, and trying to bridge the gap between the patient and the doctors, I guess. So very, very interesting idea. It's not a new idea, but the execution of it is interesting. So what do you think about this, Karen?
First of all, I'd like to say one of the things that makes Aproko Doctor really good is because he's actually a doctor. He understands what he's saying.
Yeah.
And so he has already built trust with the people that he's targeting, which I think is a very smart business move. It's possible that he had this idea before he even started creating the content. That's an assumption. I'm not saying it's fact, but I think it's a very brilliant move, which I think we discussed a couple of weeks ago, where you need to build community before you sell a product. And I think what he has done is created a market, a ready market for the product that he's building. I also find that it's very smart the way he's going about it using WhatsApp, because then the reluctance of entry for people is reduced, because you're giving them a platform that they are already very familiar with, and then you're giving it through a person that they already trust. That is a good starting point for success. And I also think that the problem he's trying to solve is a really important problem, because as Africans, we have an issue with taking our health seriously. We go to the hospital when it's really bad. There's nothing else you can do about it.
Yeah, it's last resort before you go to the hospital.
Right? I lived with a doctor at one point, and one of the things I realized is you live in a bubble. Let's say you're among the small percentage of Africans that is educated. The way you treat your health is very different from the rest of the masses. But what we forget is that is the bigger quotient when it comes to Africa. Most of the people do not understand the importance of healthcare, of going for tests and all these things. So I think that this is a beautiful way to start, first to educate them and then to give them access to people that they can ask questions, so that you can take symptoms seriously when they're still young enough or new enough to be treated, as opposed to going when your cancer is at stage 4 and you felt the symptoms at stage 1 probably, but you ignored it. So really good. I also think that we have a lot of lifestyle diseases these days as Africans, which I think can be solved and treated better with these kinds of solutions. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's doing, and I really like the manner in which he has gone about building the business.
Yeah, so build the audience and then build the product. So very curious about how this develops, especially in terms of execution, because there are a lot of moving parts with partnerships and the execution of what they want to build itself. So yeah, maybe late 2025, we'll see how this develops.
Yes. So moving forward, we are seeing Kenya partnering with a Canadian company to create blockchain-powered digital exchange. So this platform will bring government oversight to digital and real-world assets. The NSE, which is the Kenya Securities Exchange, has gone into partnership with DeFi Technologies, SovFi, and Vala Inc. to launch a Kenyan digital exchange, which is called KDX. And this platform is aimed at tokenizing real-world assets. So back to the trend of tokenization, they're going to build a blockchain-powered platform that will allow Kenyan companies to launch tokens and tokenize assets, including equities, debt, funds, commodities. So this is bringing oversight to the tokenization world for everybody to be able to purchase assets in smaller quotients. And I think it goes back to the cross-border payments that we've been talking about, trade finance, supply chain, and also just allowing more Kenyans access. What are your thoughts, Kelvin?
Tokenization, yes, is something that is becoming more common, and I believe this is an interesting development or an application of the blockchain technology itself. It's one that I've always been curious about or optimistic about the applications of blockchain. I've always thought, okay, maybe there will be applications in real estate or banking, because this idea of a public ledger that a number of people can validate and confirm, and anyone can just look up a transaction or look up the ownership of something and see exactly who owns it. It helps for transparency, but it also helps for dispute resolution. So the applications of blockchain technology is one that I've always thought opens up a lot of possibilities, especially as soon as it becomes mainstream. And this development in Kenya, trying to create an avenue for their stock exchange to be on the blockchain and allow companies to basically sell their stocks through tokenization, it's just one of those plenty possibilities with the blockchain technology. So I'm definitely excited about that. The other side of it is it seems to be that there's a reliance on foreign companies to build this digital exchange. So on that side of it, I'm like, we still have a lot of reliance on foreign expertise. And somewhere down the line, hopefully we can start to use and build more local solutions. Yeah, other than that, I think this is a brilliant development.
I really like what you've said because you've brought up a very key point, and it makes me wonder, is it that we do not have local resources that are able to build this out, or is it just a matter of we do not trust what is local and we think that whatever is outside of the local environment is better?
I think it's a combination of both. We do have local expertise, but they're still in the early days. They are still figuring things out. So it will take some time to build that trust. But on the other side of it, there is that, at least in the short term, I believe this will change over time, but in the short term, there is that thing where it feels like the foreign equivalent is better. And I know there's a lot of that in Nigeria, but maybe it's something that is also a common theme across Africa. This need to consult with the foreign technology, the foreign companies, and few, even just goods and services like groceries and things like that. The foreign always has that look of being better. So I guess there's that. With time, I believe it will change, especially with technology, and the tech scene in Africa is always developing very fast. So I believe in time that will change, but for now, it is what it is. Moving on, Visa is backing contactless payment and contactless payment solutions across Africa. And this is something that we have also noticed on the podcast as well. We have talked about contactless payment a couple of times. I guess Visa has also picked up on the fact that a number of solutions are springing up around contactless payments. So they are making a big bet on this. They are investing in a lot of fintech solutions, partnering with banks, and finding ways to integrate themselves into the entire African ecosystem that they operate in as a way to secure their footprint in Africa. Again, it's the whole reliance on foreign tech, right? A lot of these fintech solutions are backed by Visa, while they have all of this expertise. If we want to really develop as a continent, at some point we need to build what we consume. If we don't do that, then we would always be reliant on foreign companies to be able to do anything reasonable. And then what happens the day that they don't cooperate or countries have conflicts? At the current moment, we have a lot of changes in the geopolitical space, and there are many uncertainties there. So what happens when countries start to have a lot of these conflicts? What happens to these foreign companies that your country relies on? So yeah, I guess that's a broader conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you. And where my mind goes is that Visa obviously has very good market insights. I think as an international company, they must take quite some time with figuring out what is working in the market, getting market insights, and making decisions out of that. So when you see them focusing so aggressively on contactless payment, it tells you there is opportunity for African startups to actually innovate within this space, for retail tech and other fintech startups to actually invest early in tap to pay integrations, because they better understand the African market. They better understand how the psychology of the African market than any international company. So how can they take that knowledge and the insight that contactless payment is clearly something that will drive economies in the future, and then innovate with that in mind? And I think that's an important step for founders. Another thing to think about is, as these things happen, how do you ensure security? So these are some spaces that startup owners can take advantage of and innovate for, other than always relying on international companies to bring these innovations to us. But since they have clearly shown us that there is a trend there is something to innovate for in the African market, then let's take advantage of that and do the innovation ourselves. That's where my mind goes. So moving forward, Rwanda is on a journey to ditch paper health records. And I'm really excited by this one because they did the innovation. We just spoke about being too reliant on international companies, but they have created their own application. So I'm really excited by that. So they want to digitize their healthcare system by the end of this year. They want to accelerate this across all its healthcare facilities, the public health facilities in the country. And they have built a local digital platform called e-Ubuzima to achieve that goal. So this has been part of their digital transformation agenda. They have designed it to synchronize patient data across all healthcare centers so that medical personnel and patients can access their health records in real time. And the app, which is a mobile application, allows for patients to schedule their appointments, and then it shows up on the doctor's calendar, letting them know that there's a patient who'll be seeing you at a certain point in time. This is really exciting. First of all, they decided to innovate it themselves locally, and then to see the public health sector choosing to go paperless, because one of the biggest issues with going to a public hospital is the amount of time you spend on the queue. My brother recently went to a public hospital, and after that we were like, okay, no, now just get a medical cover and go to a private hospital, because he walked into the hospital at 8 a.m. in the morning, he left at 6 p.m. in the evening, and he was just queuing for things. And I think part of the issue is the paper health records. They take so much time. What are your thoughts?
Public health, even in Nigeria, has a lot of challenges. I think I even got frustrated to some point that I wrote about it on Medium. That's really how bad it can be. So I relate to this story that you shared about your brother, because I have a number of similar stories as well. Digitization of health records is something that I have always, like, within my close circle, I've talked about. It's something that we need, because when you go to a hospital, especially public hospitals, and they have records from years upon years upon years, and for them to go through all of those papers to look for your health history, and then it's a new doctor every time. So that means the new doctor is not familiar with your medical history. And of course, if you decide to change hospitals, then you have to start afresh. You have to get a new file and start to fill each of your visits. And there are a lot of challenges with the public health system. So this development in Rwanda is very much needed across Africa. So I don't know whether it will be a solution down the line that they can outsource to other countries, but it's definitely a welcome development in Rwanda, and down the line, I hope we can also do that across Africa. But then one of the things we have talked about over this episode is reliance on foreign solutions. The other great thing about this development is that they are using a locally built solution. So that is also just an icing on the cake. So this development is one that I'm excited about as well.
Yeah, and I think that other countries will be looking to see how this performs, and hopefully this becomes, as you said, a trend that goes across other African nations. And I really think that one of the biggest things that we will be on the lookout for is how data privacy will be treated, because given that you have a mobile application on your phone where you are able to access your health records, cybersecurity is going to be a big deal for this application, and ensuring that the privacy of patients is of utmost importance and there's no leakage, because this is a government tool and also it's in the healthcare space, and these are areas that cybersecurity attackers find very lucrative. So hopefully we'll be able to see how they navigate the cybersecurity space for this particular technology, and looking forward to seeing how it pans out and how it is taken across the country. And hopefully we will see other public facilities in other countries do the same.
Yeah, you touched on the major points there. At the end, cybersecurity would be of utmost importance because of the sensitive nature of health records. So, yeah, it's definitely one that they will need to watch out for, and we'll see how that goes. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Tokenised Africa podcast. Remember, leave a comment or share with your friends. We'll see you next Thursday at the same time and place you get your podcast. Until then, stay well.